United States is the largest debtor country in the world and has been for quite a while. Its debt is now exceeding its GDP, which is normally in the profession a bit of a sign that you better be careful about what you're doing with your deficit finance. Here in the United States, these two cautions no longer hold back a large portion of our political leadership in both parties, I might add, so that their behavior has been, and under Trump continues to be, we are not bound by any of these constraints, partly because so much of the world's debt is in the form of obligations in dollar terms, mostly by the U.S. Treasury. So we're free to do pretty much what we want. And so it's a politician's dream. They can give to their donor base the tax cuts that they want and that they pay for with their donations, and without a limit, apparently. That big, beautiful bill you referred to, its most important provision is ending the sunset clause that was attached to it back in 2017 when it was first passed. All those tax cuts then for corporations and the rich were set to expire on the last day of this year, and this big new bill takes away that expiration date, and so they can go on forever, and it adds a whole new collection on top of that. At the same time, it cannot raise taxes on the mass of people because that's politically no longer feasible, at least not in the short run. So they are stuck with having to continue to expand the debt. Hence your opening line here. We have a government cutting the taxes of corporations and the rich, dare not tax the masses, dare not cut programs as much as they might like, certainly not enough to prevent the debt from getting worse. So they do what most Republican governments do, make a big noise about fiscal responsibility, but never follow through. In fact, increase the debt, run the big deficits. They're bigger now than they've ever been in the last few years. So we're seeing quite conventional Republican activity, although dressed up as if it were a great new Trumpian alternative. It isn't. It's the gimmick, which is to maneuver so that you do limit the extra debt by getting the rest of the world to pay tariffs to get into the United States and to give them some new tariff revenue to supplement what they are unwilling to get from their own people in an income tax. And you know how the tariffs work. They're paid by American companies that import anything, and those companies will, once they have to pay that tax, do everything in their power, either to shift it to the mass of the American people, giving us an inflation, or squeeze the origin countries to lower their prices. Either way, it's Republicans lifting the tax burden off the corporations and the rich and spreading it to the mass of Americans or to foreigners. And this is called making America number one. With all due respect to the great country of Great Britain, you do not play the role in the world that you once did. Your empire is gone. Ours is in the process of following you into the dustbin of history, but we in America don't face up to that any more than we face up to the shenanigans of our fiscal system. But here's the reality. If billionaires based in this country were to start leaving, then we have the power as a nation to say two things to them. You can go. Your wealth, that which is here, it's going to stay. And you know why? Because you are evading your responsibilities. Number two, if you are involved in a business that depends on the United States in one way or another, you're not going to be able to recover that situation. If in no other way, because a new president will go around the country telling everybody what has been done by these individuals associated with these companies. You want to see what will happen to American businesses? They're learning now what happens if you run afoul. The man learning it is named Elon Musk, and his company is rushing into the toilet because of his falling afoul, in this case, not of the country, but of the leader of this country at this current time. But it's a good lesson in what could happen if a different leader with a different agenda were to say, wait a minute here, you can't walk away of a century of this behavior. It's not just what you did last year. We're talking about the accumulation of something that has to really be set right. They may be able to walk away and not worry about what England might do, all due respect, but they can't do that with the United States, and they know it. Moreover, for many of them, being in New York or LA or wherever they are has meaning on many, many levels. And we're not talking about a tax that takes away everything from them. We're talking about a fair rate of taxation that could be developed. I think many of them are more than willing. Warren Buffett keeps telling us he's more than willing. He's not the only one. And here's the last one which I love. If you walk away from your tax obligations, then we, the government of the United States, we will be happy. Say goodbye to you. Take some of your wealth with you. But your factory, your office, your store, we're going to convert them into worker co-ops. We're going to fund them, and we're going to keep the business going. And if you try to compete with what's left here from abroad, we will make sure that the American people know which are the businesses who stayed here, which are the businesses who provided jobs for all those people, and which are the businesses who took off to escape their taxes. You want that publicity? We'll give it to you in spades. No, we are not powerless. The game of threatening we will leave only lasts so long as you can't think about all the things we might do if you actually come through on that threat. And I can assure you, they stop and they begin to worry. There's a little bit of a failure of imagination in our society. We're so hemmed in by the media and how it is all dealt with that we don't ask questions that are really very basic and very simple. I keep noticing this when I talk to high school students who ask all those questions and do so with an honesty and a directness that is then disappearing as they get older, which worries me a lot. Let me give you an example. According to the people who run this country, we are engaged in a great struggle with the People's Republic of China for the future. And we are needing to get our allies together to confront a worse Cold War than the one we just had with the Soviet Union after World War II, etc., etc. Let's assume that there's something to it. How then would you explain a president of the United States declaring tariff war on every other country in the world, leading with our closest allies, including Great Britain, Canada, Mexico, Europe? You're destroying the alliance when you just said you need it more than ever. You're pivoting to Asia, and the BRICS has already taken half of Asia away from you. What are you talking? Well, if you understand that that's nuts, that is a fundamental misunderstanding of how the world works, this is all crazy, the fiscal game playing that the Republicans and the Democrats do. And let me tell you that beyond anything else, there are some things that are so gross that they need to be called out. The last time the minimum wage was raised was in 2009. When it was raised to the lofty level of $7.25 an hour. Put away that that's an insult to the human being in this country with its prices at this time. Put away that half the states of the union were so grossed out that they've developed state-level minimum wages much higher, including 2 times and more higher than $7.25. But neither Republicans nor Democrats have raised it since 2009. I'm an economist. Let me tell you, prices rose every year since 2009. But during all those price rises, we didn't give the poorest workers amongst us an extra friggin' nickel. What mentality? What is that? And again, it's not about Republican, Democrat, capitalist, or socialist. What? And you give away massive amounts of money to the richest, and you can't improve the minimum wage, which is, as we speak, it's still $7.25 an hour. I don't have the poetic words enabling me to ascribe the horror. When that kind of a person who's voted that way tells me about what the rich may or may not do if we were to dare to tax them, how come he's not worried about what those poor people might do if you don't give them a decent wage? Well, maybe that's the answer. Maybe that's what we have to wait for those people to finally articulate with their pitchforks what they think of the priorities of the society that we're in. All right, as to Marxism, have I learned from Marx? A great deal. But I had to learn it on my own. If you ask me the question, can we do better than capitalism? My answer is, you bet. We can. That's my confidence in human creativity. Slaves were able to say we can do better than slavery. The serfs were able to say we can do better than feudalism. And the employee class in our society can and will do better than capitalism. But whether you agree on that point or not, we are at a point where the future is no longer the debate point. This is a system that is, in my opinion, imploding on itself. It doesn't want to face it. It can't yet go beyond denial. So it was much better in the 20th century when the empire was going up than the ride is when the empire is going down. But every empire has had both of them, and we're not exempt from it either. And I think that's what's happening. And the trouble we're in is because we don't face it. We can't discuss, hey, we got to change how we divide the wealth, how we divide the decision-making in enterprise. All of these things that may have been basic for a long time are now at risk of imploding. And it's time, past time, to ask basic questions. No one ever assigned me a word of Karl Marx at Harvard, Stanford, and Yale. I had to do that all on my lonesome with a few other students who had the same interest. And I learned a lot. And I can tell you, if my teachers had learned with me, they would have done a much better job of fixing the American economy 20, 10, and 5 years ago than they did. We are all the losers because they don't want to look at the critics. Critics figure things out about something, but we shut them down in the Cold War, and we are now paying a very heavy price for having done that.